Yes, you'd think that the security measures for the 2012 Olympics will be quite tight, especially since the events of 7/7. However, that's not the case according to undercover journalist Lee Hazeldine, but his real name is Ben Fellows, and he's with us now. And basically, Ben, we'd like to know how you managed to get a job for G4S, and also what the concerns are that you are raising.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you. How did I get a job for G4S? Well, I basically walked into their training centre at Stratford. I saw an advert on television saying, come down to the training centre. I think it was on BBC London even. Went down to the training centre and queued up like everybody else, and went into a little room with a bank of computers and filled out an application form online. Well, on the G4S intranet thing, so it was on the computer. So that's how I applied. And then I was taken into another little room after waiting for a bit longer, and they did an interview. He said, come down the corridor for your interview, and I thought, great, an interview. I was getting all my, this is what I've done in security and all that kind of stuff, you know, trying to sell myself. And they didn't want to know that at all. All they said was, look, there's 3 cups here, and one's orange, one's lemonade, and one's nothing. Can you smell them and tell me which is which? And I thought, okay, I'll do it. So I said, that's orange, that's lemonade, and that's nothing. And she said, fine. And then she pulled out this picture, and it had like a number 1 and number 8, and then a squiggly line, but it kind of looked like a number, but it was a squiggly line. So I said, that's 1, that's 8, and that's a squiggly line, right? And she went, very good, thanks very much. And that was it. A couple of weeks later, I get an email saying, here are the dates for your training, for my first 2 days, and welcome to your Olympic dream.
And did you say on the application form that you'd been a journalist, or
I did.
Any indication?
I've not lied about anything. Look, the thing about being an investigative journalist without the backing of a huge news corporation, yeah, and even with the backing of a news corporation, this is how it should be, is that you're only as good as your word. If you've lied on your application form, that means you have lied. Therefore, they could turn around and say, if you've lied about that, you've lied about all of this, right? And, you know, they could do that quite easily, right? So no, I don't lie on the application form. I said I'm a filmmaker, because I am a filmmaker first and foremost. I'm a filmmaker. And secondly, I'm an investigative journalist. I gave the media company that I'd worked with before, and you know, references, one of which was a media contact. Had they had called them, had they had done their job and checked out the references, then they would know this, you know.
Once you started the training of G4S,
yeah,
what were the issues that you saw were a concern?
Well, straight away, it was a PowerPoint presentation. So as soon as we sat in that classroom environment, looking up at a screen, I just thought, oh, this doesn't bode well. I thought this wasn't going to be a PowerPoint presentation, you know. And then I thought, well, maybe half and half, right? More, because, you know, searching people is physical. It's a, you know, it needs practice. You know, from people who've never done it before, it can be quite intimidating actually touching a stranger, and you know, you know, you have to in quite intimate places, I should say, but you know, because you know, you've got to get into their arms and all that kind of stuff. If you're not used to it, it can be quite difficult. And remembering how to search someone, because there's a method to it and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't. It was just one big PowerPoint presentation, and I thought all they're going to do is talk to us, which is what they did, and that disturbed me. You know, no mention of a first aid course. Now I'm aware that people who are doing their SIA licenses would get a first aid course when they did that, but not everybody has. Some people already had their SIA licenses, like me, for instance. So I wasn't going to have a first aid course. So the last first aid course I did was over a year ago for something else that I was working on. So they could have done with having a first aid course in the curriculum. That could have been the first half a day, get everyone to know each other by doing a first aid reminder even. Because you know what, those queues at the Olympics are going to be huge. And people are going to be waiting for hours there. You know, if you think you've waited a long time at Disneyland and places like Alton Towers and things like that, you're going to wait hours to get in at the Olympics. It's going to be so big. And so people could collapse of heat stroke, of just basically standing up for too long. That could be more serious, like the heart attack or something like that. 80,000 people have got to go through those gates and get into the stadium, right? That's a lot of people. It's a lot of queuing. And you can't necessarily guarantee a St John's ambulance or a paramedic is going to be right there. So it may be, they could be 10 minutes away. That park is immense. It's huge. You know, yes, there are going to be a lot of paramedics, but they can't be everywhere all at the same time. We can't ask that of them. So wouldn't it be good if the security officer who you've collapsed in front of could ascertain very quickly whether actually you're having a heart attack, you've just fainted, it's heat stroke, you need a glass of water, or something, yeah? But he can't. All he can do is look at you, because he hasn't had a first aid course. And when G4S don't put first aid courses on their curriculum, it worries me. And 2 days of introduction to security, that worried me, because I thought, well, how can you spend 2 days introducing security when these people here are supposed to be security professionals? So it worried me straight away.
So were there any other concerns, like the security checks that are in place when people are coming into the Olympic Park, for instance?
Well, you're going to have to go through these, what they call pedestrian screening areas. And there's going to be pedestrian screening areas, or PSAs as they're calling them, when you go into the park, and then from the park into the venues. They'll all have their pedestrian screening areas. So you're going to go meet G4S people twice. Yeah. Now the metal detectors, it's a walk-through metal detector, or WTMD as they call it, and an X-ray machine. Very much like you have it, exactly the same as you have at the airport, just not good, as good quality. I was told categorically that at peak times the walk-through metal detectors would be switched off, so don't worry about it. Because I said, look, how are you going to search all these people? Right? Because as we're doing the training, you can ask questions and they can answer. Right? I said, well, how are we going to get through all these people? He goes, don't worry, you're not going to have to search them all. At peak times, the machines will be switched off. Right? Generally, when they're working, they'll be going off once every 50 times. So every 50th person that goes through, regardless of whether they have metal on it, it will go off. And if you have metal on you and you go through, touch wood, hopefully, it should go off. But if not, generally every 50th person. And it's the same at the, I shouldn't say same, similar at airports. I think they're set to about every 10th person, it does a random bleep, and that person will be searched, you know, randomly. That's part of it. But the fact that these metal detectors will be switched off should scare every single person who's bought a ticket for the Olympics, who works at the Olympic Park. They should all go into their managers tomorrow and start asking, are these metal detectors going to be on, because it's my life that's going to be in danger. It is their life that's going to be in danger. Everyone who's bought a ticket to go and see the Olympics, their life is in danger right now because these walking metal detectors are switched off, right? All I'm trying to do is make it safer for people to go to the Olympics, right? For some reason G4S, because maybe it's cheaper to go the other way, have bought metal detectors, or hired metal detectors, where you have to have quite a lot of metal on you for it to go off. Right. I was asked to be a would-be terrorist, and they gave me a knife. It was a proper gangster knife, right? It was big. It was, you know, so all it was just down my back, right? So if the guy had searched me properly, he would have spotted it. Nothing's that hidden. You can't do it, you know. I mean, real terrorists really hide things, but for this, it was obvious. So I walked through the metal detector. Didn't go off. The trainer said, have you got the knife? I went, yeah. And he goes, okay, go back round. So I went back round, walked through, didn't go off. He goes, did it go off? I said, no. And he goes, okay, here's some keys. So I had some keys. Walked back through. And he says, have you got your mobile phone? I said, I don't have a phone. He says, here, have my iPod. And I went, fine. Had all that on me, and then the metal detector went off. Right. That's how badly they work. Metal detectors at Heaven nightclub in central London are better, because Heaven is terrified of actually, you know, they have terrorist attacks. You know, there's that guy who blew up the Admiral Duncan in London, you know, and that was a homophobic attack. So they're quite used to having strong metal detectors and things. You know, they don't have X-ray machines, but I would say that that's a better PSA than the individual PSA that's going to be at the Olympics, you know. Just the setup of it's better. So how can a nightclub have better security than the Olympic Games, the biggest event this country's ever seen. And all we're talking about as part of the security is G4S. Yeah, the other security measures in there, like what the police are doing, or what the army are doing, or what the intelligence agencies are doing. I'm not criticising. I don't know. I haven't worked for them. But G4S, whose name is on the front door of the Olympics at the moment, it's a G4S Olympics. I think this is the first time. Maybe you'll be better to be able to check this than me, but I think it's the first time that a private company is being charged of security, front of house security with the public at an Olympic Games ever. Right. You know, so it's the first time it's happened. We think, but look, they're making a mess of it, right? So, so the walk-through metal detectors don't work properly. They're not good enough, and they should be switched on all the time. You know. Yeah. If you've got no metal on you, it won't go off, so what's the problem? You still walk through, right? That's great. I want that minimum protection being in there. The X-ray machines, yes, they're X-ray machines. They're great, you know, but they're only as good as the person looking at the screen, right?
So have they been trained properly?
No, not at all. You know, again, I was asked to be the would-be terrorist. They were so good at getting things through. Apparently, they gave me a gun, and I put the gun in my bag. So my bag went through the X-ray machine, and the operator looked at the machine, and then just sent the bag on its way. Now, I've done X-ray operator training. Objects are colour-coded, so materials are in the objects. So if it's an organic material, it'll be orange. If it's like a mixed materials, it'll be green and black. And if it's kind of like lead, it'll be black. Right, and if it's kind of an inorganic material, it'll be sort of, I think, blue. I may have got that a bit wrong, but it's something like that, right? See, I've been trained properly. This is the thing, right? Yeah. So the gun went through. It would have looked like a black lead gun. That's how it would look. In amongst all the other stuff, you'd see it. It stands out, pops out, because everything else is kind of black and white anyway, other than the actual colour coding. So there was no way that you could miss it. But that X-ray operator was, you know, not even paying attention to the screen. Let it sail on by. Now, a gun is never going to look like a gun in the hands of a terrorist. You're going to get a spring in some hand cream or something. You're going to get, you know, an apple with a bullet shoved in it or something. You know, they're going to disguise the component parts. So it's never going to be that obvious. So if you've missed the actual gun going through the X-ray machine, you've got no chance of seeing the actual component parts, you know, going through the machine at all. So, you know, every section of the PSA is a travesty. It doesn't work. It's left the Olympics wide open for a terrorist to walk straight through the front door. And I'm not exaggerating. If I was exaggerating, I'd have been arrested by now, right? G4S would have got me. The country would have come down on me like a ton of bricks, you know.
What would you say if somebody from G4S could possibly say, well, these were just training exercises. When the actual Olympics happens, all these problems will be solved, they'll be ironed out.
Great, let's prove it. How are we going to prove that? You know, yes, you can show one PSA with one good metal detector, but we want them all changed. So, yes, if G4S want to do that, that's fine, let them do that. But we need the PSAs changed, the personnel retrained, and proof that this has happened, not just them saying, oh, it'll be fine. Because at the moment, it won't be fine. And we can't trust you enough to allow you to do this without us checking. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to bring... I said, look, this is what you've done in your training exercises and during your classroom exercises and in your training in general. These are the problems that I've just discovered. I've only been there 4 times, don't forget. I haven't spent every single day with G4S. This is 4 times, right? And 800 people go through that school. So this is how they operate. I'm being told exactly what everyone else is being told. Thousands of us are being told the same thing. Nothing special about my class whatsoever.